At one time or another during the afternoon, all these faces had worn an expression of distrust, the object of which was undoubtedly the man whose acquaintance they were thus assembled to make. Philip Bosinney was known to be a young man without fortune, but Forsyte girls had become engaged to such before, and had actually married them. It was not altogether for this reason, therefore, that the minds of the Forsytes misgave them. They could not have explained the origin of a misgiving obscured by the mist of family gossip. A story was told that Bosinney had paid his duty call to Aunts Anne, Julie, and Hester in a soft grey hat. A soft grey hat, not even a new one, a dusty thing with a shapeless crown. So extraordinary, my dear, so odd. Aunt Hester, passing through the little dark hall, she was rather short-sighted, had tried to shoo it off a chair, taking it for a strange, disreputable cat. She was disturbed when it did not move. George, on hearing the story, grinned. The hat had obviously been worn as a practical joke. He himself was a connoisseur of such. "Very haughty," he said, "the wild buccaneer." And this Mo, the buccaneer, was bandied from mouth to mouth, till it became the favourite mode of alluding to Bosinney. Her aunts had reproached June afterwards about the hat. "We don't think you ought to let him, dear," they had said. June had answered in her imperious way, "Oh, what does it matter? Phil never knows what he's got on." No one had credited an answer so outrageous. A man not to know what he had on? No, no. What indeed was this young man who, in becoming engaged to June, old Jolyon's acknowledged heiress, had done so well for himself? He was an architect, not in itself a sufficient reason for wearing such a hat. None of the Forsytes happened to be architects, but one of them knew two architects who would never have worn such a hat upon a call of ceremony in the London season. Dangerous. Ah, dangerous. These misgivings, this perfectly genuine distrust, did not prevent the Forsytes from gathering to old Jolyon's invitation. An "at home" at Stanhope Gate was a great rarity. None had been held for 12 years, not indeed since old Mrs. Jolyon had died. Bosinney, the author of the uneasiness, stood talking to June by the further door. His curly hair had a rumpled appearance, as though he found what was going on around him unusual. He had an air, too, of having a joke all to himself. George, speaking aside to Bosinney's brother Eustace, said, "Looks as if he might make a bolt of it, the dashing buccaneer." This dashing buccaneer was of medium height and strong build, with a pale brown face, a dust-coloured moustache, very prominent cheekbones, and hollow cheeks. His forehead sloped back towards the crown of his head, and bulged out in bumps over the eyes, like foreheads seen in the lion-house at the zoo. Old Jolyon's coachman, after driving June and Bosinney to the theatre, had remarked to the butler, "I don't know what to make of him. Looks to me for all the world like an half-tame leopard." And every now and then a Forsyte would come up, sidle round, and take a look at him. June stood in front fending off curiosity. A little bit of a thing, as somebody once said, all hair and spirit, whose face and body seemed too slender for her crown of red gold hair. A tall woman, with a beautiful figure, which some member of the family had once compared to a heathen goddess, stood looking at these two with a shadowy smile. Her hands, gloved in French grey, were crossed one over the other, her grave, charming face held to one side, and the eyes of all men near were fastened on it. Her figure swayed, so balanced that the very air seemed to set it moving. There was warmth, but little colour in her cheeks. Her dark eyes were soft. But it was at her lips, asking a question, giving an answer, with that shadowy smile, that men looked. The engaged couple, thus scrutinized, were unconscious of this passive goddess. It was Bosinney who first noticed her, and asked her name. June took her lover up to the woman with the beautiful figure. "Irene is my greatest chum," she said. "Please be good friends, you two." At the little lady